K and C podcast episode number 4 is live. Little technical difficulties. My computer is being pretty lousy tonight. Just got back from Italy. I'm absolutely exhausted. I think with the time change, 6 hours? It's like 4:15. Being pretty lousy tonight. Just got back from Italy. I'm absolutely exhausted. My YouTube is on, so that's smart. 6 hours, so I can hear myself talk. That's real.
It's good to give the viewers some context.
Whoever
understand if we have some problems
right now, just must think I'm an absolute idiot. So that's good. So we're off to a rising, but free agency, and the hot topic. We'll get right into it. Kevin Durant, and from the start, I mean, I know a lot of people. You don't know where he's going to go still technically, but all signs are pointing to Oklahoma City, and from the start, that was the solution that made sense for him. It's not like the Thunder had any reason not to go back to the Thunder. I mean, they coming off beating the Spurs, taking the best team in regular season history to a full 7 games, up 3-1. They blew the series, but they're able to re-sign KD, and there's room to work. They just brought in Oladipo in that Ibaka deal, and they're still trying to maneuver even more, potentially. I mean, they'd have to do a lot of things, but one of the reports out there, and of course, reports are flying all over the place during this time period, but one of those reports that really caught my eye was that they're trying to potentially bring in Al Horford, assuming they can move Cantor, Singler, not resign Waiters, do a few things to make that contract possible. But there's a chance they could form that kind of big three, which would be unbelievable. So unless, I guess, Golden State really wows KD with an offer, or San Antonio or something like that, City, whether it's for the 1-1 or he signs a long-term deal and just wants to get it done with.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sam. I don't really understand this decision. I understand that there is a decision to be made, and the fact that there are teams out there that have winning pedigrees, and Kevin Durant is seeking that championship. But I think what it comes down to is one team drafted him. There's been one city he's been in for a decade that's really supported him. He's done a lot for the city. Not so much like LeBron James in Cleveland, but he's really beloved there. They have great fans. He has Russell Westbrook. He has a really good roster, top 4 in the NBA, another year under Billy Donovan, and a trade that makes their backcourt more versatile. So it's definitely an appealing place. And the idea that he would go to Golden State after losing to them in the playoffs and join Clay, Steph, and Draymond Green doesn't seem like a thing to me. I mean, it seems like maybe a dream scenario if you're playing video games. Like you want that as your NBA 2K team.
Well, let's put it this way.
I don't see how that would work. And look at the backlash he would get.
Connor, I think it's more logistical now that, I mean, it's in a way, it's kind of silly to say this, but in terms of what Kevin Durant wants, I think term legacy, had Golden State this year, we might be having an entirely different conversation, because they win back-to-back. You don't want to mess with that at all. I mean, I still don't think there's a reason to mess with it, but Kevin Durant could very well be that reason, considering he's a top 3 player in this game. But they don't win the title, so it's not like Kevin Durant, it's not like he's coming and breaking anything up. You can make the case, all right, we got to revamp a little bit, and this was the plan for the Warriors from the start. I mean, that's been the consensus from all the reports out there, is that this year, last year, it didn't matter, because they're moving into a brand new arena very soon in San Francisco, right on the water, huge money being poured into that. Bringing Kevin Durant would help with that financially, and they would be a better team. At least it would be a lot of adjustments, and at least long term, they'd be a better team, because there would be a lot of adjustments, and freeing up the money for that would be tough. They're going to have to let a lot of key guys go. It obviously makes sense, because you'd have a team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green. That right there is lethal.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an incredible squad. And these meetings are going to be interesting. I think Oklahoma City, they have a good deal in the fact that they sat down with him earlier today. I think Mark Stein said for 5 hours, which is a pretty good amount of time. And they're also going to meet with him at the end. So he's showing a lot of love to them, because they deserve it. And in my opinion, I don't think the other teams Maybe Golden State gives him a little bit better shot to win, but I just don't think he could overcome, and I don't think he'd want to deal with the backlash that comes with that. I mean, we can only speculate where Kevin Durant's head's at. I mean, we could talk about things that he said to the media, things about how it's about basketball, it's about a culture, and literally the only thing left on his resume is an NBA championship. He's had gold medals, he's been regular season MVP, he's been to the finals, he's got a $200 million shoe deal. So he is ring chasing, but how desperate is he for that? Is he willing to be known as that guy that jumps on the team that took him down in the playoffs, a team with 3 all-star players already, just to get it done? Or is he going to stay home, stay with the team that drafted him? Russell Westbrook's with him. They can do whatever they want next year. But I think it'll be good for him to show some loyalty to Oklahoma City. I think that's what he's going to do. I mean, he could go to San Antonio too, maybe. Him and Kawhi play the same position. LaMarcus.
I don't see how that would work. San Antonio, it wouldn't work. That wouldn't work.
Yeah, and the thing about Oklahoma City is they're the one team that doesn't have to do maneuvering to bring him back. Every other team, San Antonio would have to get rid of Boris Diaw, Danny Green, Patty Mills, which they would do that for Kevin Durant, but that's going to shake some things up. Golden State would have to get rid of Bogut, Barnes, Ezeli, some combination of that. So I think he ends up in Oklahoma City. I think it's fairly obvious. It's fun to hear all these reports and things, and it'll be fun for him to get to sample free agency because that's something that an NBA player really deserves. In college, when you're going from high school to college, you have that recruiting process, and you have a chance to decide where you're going to go. And then generally, if you're a really good player, you just get drafted by an awful team, and you don't have a say in that. So this is a team that he's grown up with, really developed with, and he was literally 7 minutes away from the finals after beating 2 of the best regular season teams of all time, almost beating them. So I think the argument's pretty simple here, Sam.
Yeah, and I don't think any of this is for show with KD. I think he's only meeting with teams he could legitimately see himself going to. If he was doing this for show, he would have met with the Wizards, let those rumors continue. But he doesn't see any chance of winning with Washington, so it doesn't matter to him that that's his hometown. He nixed that pretty quickly. Yeah, the Lakers have the glitz and glam of LA, but he didn't care for that. He shut that down. He's not meeting with the Knicks most likely. I mean, Phil's still going to try, but doesn't seem like that's happening. But he's meeting with teams he only legitimately could see himself going to. And I think, yeah, every player deserves to have their chance to, test the waters in free agency, let teams come to you and give you a pitch. I think that's definitely fair. But I think Kevin Durant is committed to this Oklahoma City team, this organization. And the one thing that's really stuck out to me throughout this year that we found out about KD and Westbrook is people try to stir things up. They try to stir the pot, especially in the media, with, when you see sometimes how they share the ball. Sometimes it seems like Russ has the ball in his hands too much. They like playing together. And I think that we've come to see that this season, especially with this playoff run, surprisingly after that game 1 against San Antonio, where down 33 at halftime, they come back and now take the Warriors to 7, and we saw a whole new Oklahoma City team that's able to play with these small ball teams. They were able to really shapeshift, and now you have to change that a little bit with Ibaka out, but I think they've gotten better in that sense. But even so, we saw Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. They really do like playing together, and now this team was fully healthy for the first time in several years. You add in Oladipo. And I literally just read a report from Mark Stein on Twitter. He's saying the Thunder is still looking for trade partners. You talk about a starting lineup of Westbrook, Oladipo, KD, Horford, Steven Adams. And then if you want to small ball that, sometimes you could go Durant at the 4, Horford at the 5, which he plays in Atlanta and which he has played for most of his career. I mean,
that's better than Golden State as far as I'm concerned.
That's my point exactly. I mean, you could talk about whatever a big 4 in Golden State, but in terms of how those 5 would play together, name me a team that would take them down in a series. I don't know. I think that's really at least the way I see it, unless another team constructs something even better. I think that's as good as it gets. So there really isn't that much of an incentive, if anything at all, for him to really want to leave Oklahoma City, because every year Sam Presti shows that, yeah, he had the James Harden deal, which in a lot of people's eyes, was really bad. based on, what we're seeing from Harden in Houston, there's also the fact that realistically he didn't want to pay him what he would have wanted, which was the max. But that's beside the point. Sam Presti is committed to building a winning team, and you see that Kevin Durant likes the Oklahoma City community. He likes his teammates. He likes his coach. He saw what Billy Donovan is able to do in terms of adjusting to other teams. We saw that in the playoffs. So it seems to me like Kevin Durant is going to stay, and unless some team is able to put together something crazy, and teams are going to pull out all the stops for this, it seems like the biggest free agent on the market is going to stay right in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, there's just one more point before we move on to the other free agents. I think about these meetings especially, we have to keep in mind that you mentioned that these teams are teams KD can see himself with down the road, maybe see himself winning. These are winning teams with winning pedigrees, okay? He's going to sit down with Popovich, R.C. Buford, Tim Duncan, Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, Pat Riley. These are winners. And next year, he's going to be a free agent again. So as far as I'm concerned, as much as it's so obvious he's going to stay in Oklahoma City this year, I think it's good that he gets a preview of what these teams have going in the future, maybe what they're going to offer next offseason, what kind of moves they're going to try and make, perhaps to get him next year.
The only thing is, though, it would make sense for him to do the 1-1. Just financially, that makes sense, and you assume that's what he's going to do. But, I've also read some things that he would sign the long-term deal. You don't know. But in the event he does the 1-1, yeah, exactly, getting a taste of the waters. And you talk about a team like the Celtics that right now I don't see Durant wanting to go to, but
they could make a deal.
They're the only other team on this list. The only team on this list besides Oklahoma City itself that wouldn't have to get rid of anybody to fit Durant in on the books. Boston is loaded. They have so many assets. So if, say, they make a trade during this year, maybe they bring in someone like DeMarcus Cousins or want to do, Jimmy Butler, they try to trade for during the draft. If they do something like that, and then next offseason say, I don't know, it doesn't work out in Oklahoma City, and he does want to leave, he's already met with Boston, he knows what they're about. You don't know, but I don't see him leaving Oklahoma City. I think that they have the talent to win a championship sooner than later, and the moves they made this offseason have been very stout. And in the event they bring in Al Horford, there literally isn't a better option in the league for Kevin Durant to go to at that point. I don't care what the Warriors did this year. That team would be so much fun to watch. It would be so fluid, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on this one.
Yeah, that's a general consensus here. I think we'll move on. Lots of big free agents. And the general thing with this free agency for me is that we have no idea what's going to happen because the NBA has never had a cap anywhere near this big of, the $94 million. It's going to be absolutely absurd. Some of these contracts we're going to see thrown out there. The one that's pretty much seems to be set in stone, technically teams can't even meet with players for another hour and a half. It's 30, July 1st is when it's supposed to officially kick off. But reports coming out today that Joakim Noah, the Knicks, $18 million a year is what he's looking at. For someone that's had that kind of injury troubles, it seems to be wearing down. That's a lot of money to dish out. Even whatever you can have, whatever salary cap you want. Paying Joakim Noah $18 million a year is crazy unless they're signing him to a 1-year deal, in which case then, yeah, sure, it's fine. But aside from that, I think that's nuts. But if he is healthy, perfect fit for the Knicks and what they have on that front line of Melo, Porzingis, and then now Joakim Noah, assuming these reports end up being the case. But the injury troubles are very risky, especially when you consider you also have Derrick Rose as your point guard. And one of the free agents they were looking at for a bunch of reports is Eric Gordon. So imagine that as a starting five where 3 of your 5 guys, the ones that you're bringing in free agency / trade, all have very serious injury history. So that's a big gamble there. But Joakim Noah, 18 a year, seems to be what's going to happen. And I think we'll find out officially in hours probably.
Yeah, 18 mil is a lot of money for Joakim Noah, but we can't really get too caught up in these numbers. The cap is insane, but because of it, the teams have insane amounts of money to spend. So hopefully, if you're a Knicks fan, it's not a long-term deal because that's going to tie you up with Joakim Noah. But 18 million, I don't think is too over the top in this case, as long as it's short-term. Just because wait till you see what these other guys are going to get. I listened to a podcast with Nate Duncan and a couple basketball writers. They did like a mock off season, and some of the deals they were coming up with are just insane. They seem insane, but that's what's going to happen. I think Luol Deng was getting 26 million. Parsons is going to get 22 something, and a lot of it has to do with experience in the league. So if you play 10 years in the league, your due or your max salary is 35% of the cap. So those guys are going to get a lot of money, the veteran guys. But as far as Joakim Noah's fit with this team, the Knicks are just trying to make noise in general. I think that's what Phil Jackson has to be about right now because they were just so far out of contention, took such a big step back that they need some excitement. And Joakim Noah provides that. He's a high-energy guy. He's a New Yorker. He's going to play both ends. Obviously, the quality of player is down because his numbers are way down. I mean, he was hurt last year, but even when he was healthy, his rebounds, assists, steals, blocks per game, those are all digressing the last 2 years. So he's not the same Joakim Noah he was in 2011, just like Derrick Rose is in the same player.
They don't need him. I don't think they don't need him to be that, though, is the thing.
I don't think so either. It's an upgraded way. Because he's not Kyle O'Quinn.
Porzingis and Melo in the front court, but the injuries are what it comes down to. And then, additionally, you got to fill out the rest of that bench. There's still, I think, if Joakim Noah comes on board, the Knicks would have 6 official players on their NBA roster, and there's a lot to go. A few guys opting out. Derek Williams was someone that could have come off the bench that saw some good things from. Yeah, Afflalo opted out. The Knicks did.
It appears I may have lost Sam. We'll see. I think he's going to try and get back on. Yeah, he's going to try and get back on. But we were discussing Joakim Noah and his fit with these New York Knicks. And obviously injuries are a bit of a concern, but as I mentioned before, I think when you look at this Knicks team and, speaking with Knicks fans and listening to the things they have to say about it, bringing in Derrick Rose and trying to build around this Porzingis and Carmelo Anthony, they just want to be back in contention. And I think Joakim Noah provides that. He's a competent NBA player and someone who's going to play both ends with a lot of energy. So I think that's a huge plus for the Knicks in that fact. I mean, obviously you worry a little bit about the contract, but really at the end of the day, it's only money, and Phil Jackson's going to find a way to use that wisely. They have $30 million in max cap space this offseason. If Noah really gets the 18 mil, that'll be cut down a little bit. So Phil's going to have some decisions to make. They need to bring in other players. They still need a 2. But as far as I'm concerned, where the Knicks sit right now, Derrick Rose, Porzingis, Carmelo Anthony, and Joakim Noah, that's 4 solid pros. A couple former MVP type players. And, it's progress. And that's all you can ask for if you're a Knicks fan. If you're looking at Phil Jackson, really looking at the totality of what he's done in New York, it hasn't been that bad. He got a little bit of flack for some deals he's made. Obviously, the Porzingis draft pick was huge. But really, when you think about it, he trades Robin Lopez, and you get good value back in Derrick Rose. So, and then now you're going to bring in Joakim Noah to replace Lopez. So it's not as big of a loss there. This team's really, they're getting close to being that fringe playoff team that people want them to be. And you got to give Phil Jackson a lot of credit for that. Moving away from Noah for a minute, they're still trying to get Sam back on the line here. He's having some technical difficulties. Chandler Parsons is another guy. Free agent class this year, not as strong. It looks like we're getting Sam back.
Oh, we're back. We're back. Yes.
I rambled a little bit about Joakim Noah. So yeah, I don't know what else there's left to say about that.
Yeah, spotty internet on my part. Good to see you got the conversation still carried along. I was curious to see how this would save, but we're still saved. Yeah, lots of technical issues on my end tonight. Just just a wreck, but we're good. And I think really there's not that much to cover on Joakim Noah. If he's healthy, he could be very effective for the Knicks. But unless they make another move that really, garners a lot of attention and really bolsters that team, there's a limited ceiling. The making noise, a little cliche, probably the best way to put it up there, though, for this team, because they're not a top 4 team in the East. And even with Joakim Noah, I don't know if they are. I think what Indiana did was very impressive. Obviously, the Cavs are up there. Toronto's not going anywhere. And, I mean, there's still so many other teams in the East, depending on what the Heat end up doing. The Hawks, if they resign Horford. It's hard just to see this Knicks team really do anything other than be a low playoff seed unless they really make a few other key additions to this team. But, for what the cap is, again, it's a percentage of the cap. Max contracts can't be thought of as, okay, the best players in the league. It's not like that anymore. It's a matter of how much cap room you have, how much of your cap room you're willing to spend on X, a particular player. And in the Knicks case, when one of your best players is on a rookie deal for the next 3 years, and Kristaps Porzingis, that gives you more cap room, especially with this cap increasing, which is why draft picks are more and more valuable with this cap going up and up for this year. And then next year, cap's going to go up even more. I think 107 mil is what it's projected to be. It could even be more than that. But we'll look at a few other key free agents here tonight. Again, less than an hour and a half till this all starts up. This free agency is going to be madness. I think the biggest way is forget the key free agents that we're talking about, obviously, KD, Mike Conley, so on and so forth, Horford, all those guys. The fact that, everybody has cap room. It's not just a few teams. Literally, everybody has room to make a signing.
20 teams have over $30 million in cap space.
You're going to see guys so overpaid. Both of our teams have, I think, over 55 mil. The Nets have now, with Thad Young gone, 55 mil. I don't know how much the Lakers have exactly, but
62. Lakers have the most.
Yeah, they both have so much cap room. And it's at a point where even if you don't get the guys you want, you still have to reach the cap floor,
right?
Or you're going to have to pay that money anyways.
And that's where we're going to see the second-tier guys get these 1-2 year deals for $20 million. That's where you're going to see Bismack Biyombo get $18 million per year. So things are really going to shake up. And
I still can't believe that Bismack Biyombo is considered for that kind of money. Like
Tyler
for some
Johnson,
players,
do you know who Tyler Johnson is? Not the hockey player.
Yeah, I know who he is.
The Miami Heat backup guard is his floor is $10 million. That's what Wojnarowski said today.
That's crazy. I want the Nets to take some chances on some guys. I wouldn't pay Tyler Johnson.
Dellavedova is in the same way.
You
hate Delly, right? His over/under is like 9
That is gonna bother me if a team pays Matthew.
The Pistons and Bucks were really scouting him in the playoffs.
We saw him get benched in the finals for Mo Williams. You're gonna tell me that I don't care what the cap number is.
Hey man, Mo Williams is a 50-point scorer.
He is. That's true. That's a fun fact. So is Corey Brewer. If we're gonna really start throwing some names out there, that's always fun when you see guys like that. I think Jamal Crawford is like a few of those. Like they just love guys who can just go off like that occasionally. Obviously, Crawford in a league of his own compared to those two guys, but it is interesting.
Just saw a tweet that the Kings are pursuing Dion Waiters.
Yeah, I saw the Kings and the Sixers, but they're going to pursue everybody. Those guys, teams like that. I mean,
they just need guards.
Players last year were taking less money to not have to play for the Sacramento Kings. He's got an absurd contract from the Mavs. I think he's making $16 a year. He was going to get even more from Sacramento. He just couldn't play for the Kings, and that's
can't blame him.
That's a dysfunction that organization has right now, and they're going to be in the mix for many of these free agents, at least in terms of getting a meeting, because Vivek's just going to open his checkbook, but there is no direction that organization. Cousins pissed off with everything that's gone on, so much turmoil, and they actually got themselves a good coach in Dave Yeager, but there's still so many question marks. There's turmoil in the front office. You have an owner who talked about, basing the team's strategy on his kids like fifth grade basketball. What was it? They were playing like 4-on-5 or something like that. It's mind boggling to me that that's a real NBA franchise. So until they get that kind of situation in order, the rumors that Vlade Divac doesn't know how the cap works.
He only wants players from Serbia too.
Yeah, how are you going to build a team with that? So I think that's the wrong kind of team for Dion Waiters to go to. If the Thunder don't get Horford, I think they're probably going to end up keeping Waiters there. They'll give him enough to keep him there. And I think if you put Dion Waiters on a team with the veterans that are there to pick him up, like Katie and Russ seemed like they were able to take him under their wing a little bit. And by the playoffs, he had contributions off the bench.
You don't think he's a little perturbed with the Oladipo trade?
I mean, I don't know.
It's up to him because he can get almost max money anywhere he wants. Well, not anywhere, but
he said after the season he wants to stay there. But I mean, I would still understand that. I don't think. I mean, Dion Waiters, we don't know what he thinks about himself. I'm sure he thinks very highly of himself as a player, but if he wants to come in and be a sixth man on the right contract, if you have the money to do it, not the worst thing in the world. The other thing with the Thunder, we were talking about it before, if they're trying to get Horford in there too, they'd have to move Enes Kanter first. Problem with his deal, he was a restricted free agency last year. He got a max from the Blazers on an offer sheet, and then the Thunder matched it, and that's why they had him last year, even though he was only playing under 25 minutes a game because he was coming off the bench. His defensive ability came into question. Very serviceable offensively, obviously, but if you're trying to get out Horford, it's a big step up. But with Enes Kanter's contract, he can veto any trade until after the 12th. So if he really wanted to, he could essentially hold the Thunder hostage. And if they wanted to trade him for somebody, maybe like a signing trade or something, he could veto that until the 12th. And there's a 15% trade kicker, meaning that the team that takes him is going to have to pay him even extra. So makes teams less likely to want to do that. A lot of guys that sign contracts, they have that to kind of force teams to not take them in trades. So it'll be tough to trade Enes Kanter. But if that, again, like I said before, if that Horford combination works itself out, that's a scary team. But one guy I saw name a lot today on social media, Hassan Whiteside. And from all the reports now, I guess whatever front runner means, Dallas seems to be the front runner in getting him. In Miami, Pat Riley always seems to want to form a big three, so it leaves a lot of players expendable. And I could see why Hassan Whiteside might want to go to Dallas, but if he does do that, I question the defensive ability of a front line with him and Dirk Nowitzki, even though Hassan, his blocks speak for themselves. He blocks a lot of shots, simply put. There were questions about how he defended in terms of how the touches individually. Sometimes, he'll come out for blocks and he'll leave other guys out to dry. And there are limits to his game. He does some things very, very well. But Hassan Whiteside's going to go from making under $1 million to getting a max contract, which for him I think is around the $22 million mark. But Dallas is a front runner right now. Question that fit, but we'll see.
Dallas is a weird place. I think they're one of those 4 or 5 teams that could probably take a big step back this free agency, just because, it's tough with Dirk Nowitzki because while you have him around, you don't want to go into tank mode, and you've kind of promised him you're going to try and compete. And it seems like their main targets are Whiteside and Mike Conley. And even with that, do they really win a round in the playoffs even? I'm not so sure. I think Whiteside, there's a lot of other places for him. I don't see him really come back to Miami. He just seems like, he calls himself a businessman first, basketball player second. I think Portland would be a great place for him. I think they could really use a good center. If him or Dwight or Horford could go there, they could be a really fun team in the West. The Lakers are going to offer him probably the max too. And he said he wants to sign as soon as possible. So he could be one of those first chips that falls. But the Mavericks, as far as I'm concerned, they have a lot of cap room, but I don't think they have the pieces that they're going to really compete in that Western Conference. No matter what they do, I don't think they can surpass the Clippers, Warriors, Spurs, or Thunder. And that's a hard top 4 to crack into, but I think Dallas needs to start going into that rebuilding process sooner than later.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point because one of the rumors, again, a million different rumors. You don't know what's true, what's false, what's kind of true, what's, in between there. One of the things was if Golden State doesn't get Kevin Durant, they would really look into getting Dirk Nowitzki. And Dirk, obviously, he wants to finish his career as a Mav.
Yeah, he won't leave. He won't leave.
But if if the Mavs aren't going anywhere and the past few years have been stagnant, obviously tough break last year with the DeAndre Jordan fiasco. But if the Mavs, have a mediocre plan, he might just go to Golden State or go to a team like that. That's what Pau Gasol's going to do. If Pau Gasol really has his pick and he's made so much money in his career, he's willing to take kind of like a David West deal, not completely what he got last year with the cap going up. Pau could still make something like $5 million this year, and it would be a very, 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 very team-friendly deal. But, Dirk could just decide, all right, this team's not doing anything. But his whole thing was he just wants the Mavs to make an effort. I think at this point he has his ring.
I think they have.
Yeah, and I mean, they're making an effort. It's just very tough.
Chandler Parsons isn't very good.
Yeah, Chandler Parsons said he's done. Chandler Parsons, and I don't think there's a reason to keep him anyways. I think that in limited action you saw some good things from him, but he's not worth the kind of money he's going to get. Granted, again, it's because of the cap, but even so, I haven't seen enough from Chandler Parsons the past few years in Dallas, and he was banged up a lot.
2 knee surgeries too.
Say again, sorry.
2 knee surgeries.
Yeah, no, the injuries as well. It's a good point. There's a lot of question marks to them. I could see him going to Orlando, actually. That's a fit I could see. Lakers are one of the teams interested. I don't know, as a Lakers fan, how you feel about that. But
I mean, they desperately need a wing, so they need a 3. Right now, like, their starting lineup would be fun because it's all those guys that they've drafted
they
the past couple years.
Space. Yeah,
but they need real NBA players. So we'll see who they can get to go there. Evan Turner's a guy that might be interested.
Yeah, why not? Exactly. But those are a few players. Dwight Howard, another one. We'll touch on him. He's meeting with everybody, it seems like. Atlanta, Boston are on the docket for tomorrow. And I think he'll meet with a lot of different teams. One fit I like for him if they could make it work financially. I know they got to sign Nick Batum as well, but Charlotte played for Steve Clifford in LA. There were talks during the trade deadline that Charlotte was going to consider making a move for him. I could see that being fun with him and Kemba. And, the real pipe dream here is it's not going to happen, but
don't say Brooklyn.
Back to Orlando. I mean, Frank Vogel could get so much out of him. Imagine the defensive force of him and Ibaka, especially if Ibaka is able to prove his range just a tad. But that's not realistic. I don't know where Dwight's going to end up, but Dallas could theoretically still be an option for him. That's the thing. There's so much uncertainty this free agency.
Another guy I think would fit well in Portland.
Yeah, I mean, Portland could
out of the limelight a little bit. He can just play defense with an awesome backcourt.
I just think a situation like that in general is what he's gonna need. I mean, Dwight wants the ball more, I think, and for someone that just not too long ago was probably top 5 player in this league, you could say, not too long ago, within like 5 years, that's how good Dwight Howard was. It's a tough fall from grace for him, and a lot of that's because he's played with superstars that need the ball to be successful. Kobe and Harden in those ever since he's left Orlando. But I don't know. It depends on the fit for him. Portland would be a great fit. I think if he's serious about winning like he said he was in the TNT interview, he needs to go to a smaller market. And he needs to play maybe where he's kind of that veteran and he takes this team and tries to build them into something. That's why I'd like Charlotte a lot because you have some good young players there. We're seeing Kemba Walker improve. Nick Batum was a great addition last year. If they can make it work financially and bring in Dwight Howard, that's a top 4 team in the East right there. You'd be talking with them as a team that could be in that Eastern Conference semifinals. Maybe if something crazy happens, however the bracket works, they could make it even to a conference finals if you really, really want to push it a little bit. But I think that's the kind of situation where Dwight's going to succeed because he's no longer at a point, whether it's physically with the injuries, mentally he seems a little out of whack because of what's happened recently. He seems pretty demoralized, where other players are going to want to play with him. Who's going to want to sign up with him as part of like a big three? He doesn't seem like he's in that kind of status anymore. So maybe he takes a short-term deal, he proves himself, or if he takes a long-term deal with the younger team. Dwight's not too old. He's still got plenty of time left. I believe he's 30. I don't see that as the worst thing in the world. I think a smaller market team with a younger core is where Dwight should go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think he just needs to get out on a team where he can find a niche and really do his thing, which is posting up, getting 12, 15, 20 touches a game and blocking shots, protecting the rim. He's just had so many distractions, and whether he's gotten in his own head or, he just hasn't really met expectations or had the role that he wanted coming in. It's just been a lot of nonsense, and he's still an extremely talented player who a lot of teams could use. There are a lot of teams in this league that could use some stability at center. Portland's definitely one of them. So I think he'll end up somewhere like that, as you mentioned, and he's probably going to command somewhere in that $24-25 million range.
Yeah, that's being
just on
reported.
His name and his experience alone.
Yeah, I mean, what he's going to make is really not going to be too far off from what his contract would have been had he opted into his player option. But Houston wanted him to – they wanted him to come back, but for less money. And, Dwight wasn't having any of that partially because it didn't really work with him in Houston, and he can get that money elsewhere. So I think a few more guys to get to before we wrap this thing up. Again, a lot of speculation at this point, and over the next few days, there'll be so much speculation between guys meeting with people, commonalities. Oh, they played for this coach at one point. They really like this about a team and that. And then all the trade rumors. It's going to be absolute chaos because I don't even think all the teams are really prepared for this as much as, they've anticipated this cap for a while. There's going to be so much movement around the league, and I really am intrigued to see how teams, they're going to play their cards here. What teams are going to wait out a little bit and see what they could scrape up later on. What teams are, are going to go for the trade route and say, okay, try to go out there and sign one of these free agents is going to cost more than it's worth. Why not find a trade partner and make something happen? I think that's the big thing. And, one of the big free agents, one of the last ones we still got to touch on out here, Mike Conley. Haven't really talked about him. We've mentioned him a few times. I don't really see him leaving Memphis, I think Memphis and Dallas, those seem to be the two teams. Going to meet with Houston as well.
San Antonio is a sleeper.
San Antonio too, but we'll see. I mean, if San Antonio ended up getting him, that would be something. But, Tony Parker is not as old as you think he is just because he's played so long. He's still early 30s. I don't know. I just think Mike Conley's going to stay in Memphis end of the day, and there's a lot of work to do in Memphis in terms of building that team up to something other than –
they're another one of those teams, I think, in that Dallas conversation where
exactly.
they could just fall right off the map. But you feel bad for Marc Gasol because he signed that big deal.
He had Marc Gasol sign that right away. Yeah, I think Conley's just going to stay there because of the familiarity of it, and I don't think any of the other teams give him that much better of an option. Of course, San Antonio is different if that actually happens. But that aside, I see Memphis making a lot of sense for him. The one guy who the max contract talk has been going on for a while, and people are still baffled by it. I think Harrison Barnes is the one guy we really, I'd say, got to touch on.
If we don't make fun of Harrison Barnes in this podcast, then it probably wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if he ends up with a max contract after that abysmal finals,
and he will.
I don't know if that says more about the team or just the craziness of this free agency, because he had one of the – I mean, it depends on how you compare one of the worst finals in, like, recent memory. But
yeah, he's an Olympian.
The latter half of those NBA finals, he could not hit a shot. It was so pitiful to watch. But at the same time, I could absolutely see a team like the Sixers signing him because the Sixers have so many rookies. They have so many guys on their rookie contracts. You have to fill that money somehow, and why not place those rookies with Harrison Barnes, see what he can do, even if you know you're overpaying the guy by a decent margin. You have that money to spend. Why not? I think somebody's going to spend it on Harrison Barnes. Orlando, another team. Now that Orlando has Ibaka, they're going to sign somebody to an outrageous contract. I don't know who it's going to be. Could be Parsons, hometown boy. Don't know who it's going to be, but Orlando's going to hand out some just crazy money. Now they have
It'll be
Ibaka.
interesting to see what they do with Fournier too, because
Yeah,
as
Fournier,
weird as he is, he's pretty productive.
He's going to get a crazy contract as well. I mean, there are going to be guys that a casual NBA fan have not heard of that are going to get contracts this year that are this offseason. They're going to be like $15 million range. I'm really interested to see how that's going to be because, I mean, people like me and you, and I'm sure people that are tuning into this, they know enough about the NBA to know most of these guys. But for the average fan, if you're not watching an Orlando Magic game, how would you know who Evan Fournier even is? Let alone think that he's a guy in, a max contract consideration. But with what's going on, he absolutely is. And I think Orlando is going to try to retain him. But as for Harrison Barnes, though, do you have a landing spot you want to see him in? Do you think he's coming back to Golden State, or do you think he's just going to take a boatload of money somewhere?
My gut kind of tells me that with a lot of these guys, particularly the restricted free agents, which a lot of these bigger names are, I mean, I tend to think that a lot of them they might just end up going back to where they were. And a lot of it depends on Kevin Durant. Because if he goes back to Golden State, to Oklahoma City, then there's 5 teams that, they missed their chance and they're back to the drawing board. And for Golden State, yeah, you can go after Al Horford, but I think he's probably pretty comfortable in Atlanta. And Golden State would have to make some room to bring him in. And as bad as Harrison Barnes was, I don't think that franchise is ready to just let him walk and let Festus Ezeli's in that conversation too. Harrison Barnes is 24. He can guard 3 positions. He's a really versatile player. So I think his game and, just the fact that Golden State drafted him gives him a chance to come back. And, Golden State's got to be prepared to offer him the max at this point because Philly and Brooklyn will. And, it'll be interesting to see. But I tend to believe that a lot of these restricted guys are going to end up going back.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, Golden State has said, they do want to keep him. But Harrison Barnes, Kevin Durant, I think you know which side they're going to lean on in the event that option comes into play.
Although they're both on Team USA, so.
This is true. So is Draymond. There's a lot of guys on Team USA. He plays on it as well. Team USA is interesting, and that's, I guess, we can kind of wrap this up with talking about Team USA because at the end of the day, with free agency, it's going to be nuts, and we know this. We don't know how it's going to play out. You can speculate on all you want. There's going to be some signings that nobody saw coming. There's going to be some that sense. End of the day, what's going to be crazy is the amount of money exchanged to these players. Much more than ever before. If a player worked it out that they'll be a free agent this summer, they're about to, hit the jackpot here because they will be getting paid more than they would have in any other season. But to wrap this up with Team USA talk, 12-man squad, to me, the thing that jumps out is only 2 point guards, and that's really this process of elimination. Kyle Lowry, who's the second point guard next to Kyrie Irving, he wasn't even in the initial, I think it's 31-man, tryout they did last summer. I don't know if it's 31 or 33, something in that range, but they had to pool to get Kyle Lowry in there. So many guys dropped out of it, but this team is still obviously the heavy favorite, which just shows the dominance of Team USA on the international level. Aside from that 2004 bronze medal job they managed to pull out, aside from that, they win gold every year. And Coach K, every year he's been there, he's won gold his final year there. This is going to be a younger team. It's going to be a different makeup. Kevin Durant's really the alpha dog of the team. After that, Melo is up there too, just as the leader. trying to win his third gold. But, aside from that, it's going to be interesting to see who steps up. And I think that, for a lot of the young guys, a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, if you see him come in there and have a big tournament, that's an encouraging sign. Kyrie, how's he going to build off of what he did in the finals? It's going to be fun to watch this team play together, but I'm just still surprised that Coach K only opted to go with 2 point guards. You could have found someone like Isaiah Thomas or somebody of that caliber still plug in as a third point guard on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. They're gonna win gold. They got a pretty good squad, and it'll be fun. The Olympics are always fun. We'll see what kind of stories come out of there with all the crap that's going on.
Yeah,
with the health and the economics and all that. Seems like it's a big mess, but the basketball team should be in pretty good shape.
I mean, what Olympics? I mean, the Olympics have all been a mess.
They're always a mess. You're absolutely right. London, there was terrorism. Beijing, there's pollution.
Do you think at one point the solution is, not to have it all in one city? That, the World Cup, they do it in a country. I mean, that's a start, but the Olympics of this year, it's just so much crazy stuff. I know Sochi, there was a lot for the Winter Games, but it seems like Rio is just more than anyone can imagine. And it's just more and more, athletes not coming because they're afraid to get bit by infectious mosquitoes that can carry some, pretty serious consequences. That's not anything we've seen in Olympic Games in the past, but USA Basketball has a squad. NBA free agency kicks off in 1 hour on the dot, and I think that's all we got for the podcast tonight. I'm absolutely
go to bed.
Yeah, I'm absolutely exhausted. It's now 5 a.m. in Italy. I need some sleep. Thank you all for tuning in, though. KNC Basketball Podcast, and at some point later on this week in the free agency period, Connor and I, let's begin this initial day of free agency. I'm sure so much is going to go on. I'm really excited to see what kind of trades are going to unfold, what kind of last-minute decisions. I mean, one last thing I'd say, if we just want one maybe kind of prediction piece, is there anything you think will come close to the drama that was DeAndre Jordan last year? Do you think anything will capture the internet like that? Do you think that's even possible? Because that was unbelievable.
I feel like Miami could have some things go down. Just quickly, I feel like Whiteside could stir some things up. And Dwayne Wade, like, if Whiteside leaves, or if they try to pay Whiteside a ton and they don't give Dwayne Wade as much money as he wants, there could be some turmoil there. He says he's listening to offers from other teams. If he left, I think that'd be a pretty big deal. And
yeah,
you don't know about Chris Bosh.
It's true. A lot of instability with Miami right now. A lot of things they want to work out. Pat Riley's always trying to put together his next crew of superstars. KD still is meeting with them at some point during this weekend in the Hamptons. I don't know. Dwight Howard free agency could get interesting, but he's just not the player he used to be, so it just doesn't get as much attention as it did a few years ago when he signed with Houston. He's no longer that marquee free agent. But storylines are fun. Nothing's going to compare to what happened with DeAndre Jordan last year. That was amazing. That captured the internet in any way. Nothing like I've ever seen. I guess we'll do one final thing. This is something I thought about doing. I'd say since, I'm a Nets fan, you're a Lakers fan, I just want to give my brief synopsis what I want to see my team do. I'll let you do the same. You can talk about your Lakers, see what you want to see them do. Both teams having a ton of money. Nets around the $55 million mark, and I just want to see them bring in some young guys and some guys on, short-term contracts. I don't mind overpaying because, again, especially with letting Thad Young go, you have that money. But it's about the long term. I think Sean Marks and company know this. Allen Crabbe is a guy they're looking at, and I'd love to see him go to the Nets. Allen Crabbe, you sign him on whether it's a short-term deal or not, doesn't really matter to me. I don't mind really overpaying for a guy like that and making Portland either try to match or let him go to the Nets, because you give him a starting role and maybe he turns into a player you can really use as one of those core pieces of your franchise. So someone like that, a Kent Bazemore, They're looking at Lynn. They're meeting with Rondo at one point, which would be interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. Ryan Anderson's rumored, and I don't want that. He's just gonna get
Don't give
disgusted.
that guy a dollar.
He can't play defense. Yeah, he could shoot the three ball very well. But I see him and Lopez as a front court that doesn't work. So that's my little brief synopsis on the Nets. Keep building for the future. Make it something where, yeah, you have money to spend, sign some guys, but make it that the younger guys get a chance to play. Let guys like Hollis Jefferson, if LeVert is actually healthy, McCullough, now that he's going to be able to play this year, let that work itself out and go from there. So your franchise is in a little bit of a better position than mine in the short term and the long term, with the Lakers having so many draft picks on this team. What do you want to see?
Yeah, they're definitely further along in the rebuild. They desperately need a basketball player at center because they haven't had that in a long time. I think it's going to be Biyombo Whiteside. I heard rumors they were trying to trade for Brook Lopez. I don't know if that would happen, but I just think they need to bring in pros, like even an Evan Turner kind of player. That's not a bad move. I just think they need more pros to surround these young guys. Another good player in the backcourt. They got to get rid of Nick Young. That's really the main priority. And someone like Evan Turner, guys at the wing spot, and in the front court, because the front court's been garbage. Julius Randle, he's undersized, but he's going to develop. I mean, they just have so much money. You have to think they're going to bring in at least some fringe role player guys that can hopefully make an impact. I'm just looking for a little bit of progression. I don't think they're a playoff team unless they bring in some miracle thing like a Horford or someone. But yeah, just general progression. That's all I want to see out of the Lakers, really. I'm excited to watch the young guys play, no matter how many games they win or lose.
It's true. Get some continuity in there. Have a coach that's not Byron Scott. That's always a plus. And we'll see how it goes for both of our teams this year. But that'll do it for the KNC Basketball Podcast. Like I said, we'll be back soon, some point during free agency, to kind of give a little bit of a recap of what we've seen. But let the games begin. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care. Have a good night.